Hey everyone, welcome to Tales and Texts, and I'm your host Nisha. In today's episode, we're going to be doing a poetry reflection. The poet I have chosen for today is Nabneeta Dev Sen, a prolific Bengali writer who is one of the foremost leading figures in literary feminism in India. Nabneeta was born in 1938 in Bengal and she passed away in Bengal in 2019. Her pedigree in literature comes from generations. Her father, Nabneeta Dev, was a very well-known translator, while her mother, Radharani Devi, some of you might know, especially if you're into Bengali literature, was the author who went by the pseudonym Aparajita. And it isn't just her own paternal and maternal side that was such a literati family, but Nabaneeta was also family friends with Rabindranath Tagore and Sharat Chandra Chattopadhyay, both of whom have been extremely integral not just to Indian literature but also to the freedom struggle. In fact, it was Rabindranath Tagore, who was a personal friend of Radharani Devi, Nabneeta's mother, who gave Nabneeta her name. In fact, Nabneeta might not even have been her name if Rabindranath Tagore had not stepped into the picture. Her mother wanted to name her Anuradha. But Rabindranath Tagore decided that the baby deserved a special name, and that's how he came up with the name Nabneeta, which means a new faith or a new moral order. And the little baby grew up to become a formidable woman who lived up to her name. She ushered in a brand new world for feminist literature in India that transformed not just the literary landscape but also the Indian political landscape and cultural landscape. Nabneeta Dev Sen has been penning her poems and her novels since the age of 21. And over the course of so many decades, she has written so much that has added phenomenally to the feminist literature within the country. Her poetic influences come from her family's background and her history. And to understand this, we need to go a bit further back to her mother and her grandmother. Nabneeta's mother, Radharani Devi, was a child bride. She was married off at the age of 13, and very soon after her marriage, she lost her husband to the deadly flu. And as you can imagine, early 19th century, or rather early 18th century India, the early 1900s, was not a good time to be a widow, especially a child widow. And Radharani Devi was ostracized by society. And things would have not turned out the way they have had her mother-in-law also given up on her. But Radharani Devi's then mother-in-law decided to take the child as her own and to educate her. And it was through this education that Radharani Devi developed her unique literary sense and her creative abilities. After her education, Radharani Devi worked as a writer and a columnist for different Bengali publications, and it was here that she met her soon-to-be husband, Nabneeta Dev. They fell in love, and the rest, as they say, is history. There's something very interesting to know about Radharani Devi, and it is that she completed her own Sampradhan herself. Now, for those of you who don't know, Sampradhan is the equivalent of the Kanyadan, which is a very important rite in the Hindu marriage. Kanyadan or Sampradhan is where the oldest male member, typically the father, but could be any oldest male member who is related to the bride, gives the hand of the bride in marriage to the groom. The oldest male member takes the hand of the bride in his own hand and he transfers it to the hand of the waiting husband. Now, this Sampradhan Kanyadan process has been criticized by many people for being extremely patriarchal and regressive and for treating women as the property of the father prior marriage and then the property of the husband after marriage. And the act of giving the bride away, Kanyadan, that is giving the woman in arms to the man, has been considered as a form of transfer of property, indicating that women's status in a family or in India generally is that of a property equivalent to cattle or lands or any other property. And it was this convention that Radharani Devi in the early 1900s that she defied completely. Instead of conforming to the conservative and regressive mores of the time, Radharani Devi decided to take agency of herself and became her own person. She gave her own hand in marriage to Nabneeta Dev, essentially shocking extremely conservative 1900s Bengal, and but also making quite a statement for women around the country. And it is this legacy, as you can see, that Nabneeta Dev Sen comes from. Being a feminist, being an empowered woman is in her blood, and it is something that she has passed on to in her poems and in her literary gifts to the world. Now, Nabneeta Dev Sen, some of you may be aware, was married to Amartya Sen, a very famous economist who is based in the United States. After her marriage to him, she came down to India with her two daughters, where she was a single mother supporting them through her literary publications. And her poems are typically focused on themes of womanhood, on intimacy, on the politics of the body, on discrimination faced by the different genders, specifically focusing on women's discrimination, on how it is to be a woman in India, and on extremely important topics such as the right to seek divorce, the right to get remarried after being a widow, the right to live as a free and independent woman without being married, the right to exist as a woman and to exist with the same set of privileges that men get. So these are the themes that Nabneeta Dev Sen used to write about. And her poem that we're going to be talking today, which is Take Back the Night, is a very stark reminder of how or why these poems are extremely important and are necessary for us today. So let's get right into it. Before that, I'm going to be stating a list of a couple of books by Nabneeta Dev Sen that you can pick up if you're interested to read her works. Now, Nabneeta Dev Sen has written some of the works such as On a Truck Alone to Macmahon, Nati Nabneeta, Ami Anupam, The Parrot Green Sari, Looking for Addresses, and her most famous work till date, Acrobat, an anthology of poems from which I have actually taken this poem, Take Back the Night. Acrobat is a must read and a must keep on any bookshelf of anyone identifying as a women's ally or a female identifying person's ally, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. And as with any translation, I would heartily urge you to read the poems and read Acrobat in the original Bengali, because although the English translations are extremely accessible, the true depth of character, the depth of emotion, and the depth of complexities of her poems can be felt to their maximum extent in Bengali itself. But for those of us like me who don't know Bengali, we'll stick with the English and we'll do our best with that. And I don't think it's going to be too bad, because the English version of Acrobat was actually translated by Nandana Dev Sen, who is Nabneeta's daughter, and she, being so intimately acquainted with Nabneeta's style of writing, is, I think, someone who we can completely trust in terms of being able to do justice to the translation. So, all right, let's get right into it. We have Take Back the Night by Nabneeta Dev Sen. Now, this poem includes two characters, a man and a woman. There are 6 lines in total, and each alternative line is told by the man and the woman. And it is a comparison of how men view the world versus women view the world. So let's get right into it. I'm going to be narrating the poem right now, reading it out loud, but I will also paste the poem in the description box for those of you who want to read it or for accessibility. And if you're using a screen reader, go right ahead and click on the poem in the description box. Take Back the Night by Nabneeta Dev Sen. Man. In the twilight, I can hear the lark. Woman. The night was moonless, oppressively dark. Man. In the flowering woods, a night fairy walked. Woman. In the Sundarbans, the man-eater stalked. Man. In the fragrant springtime air. Woman. Blood-drenched remains lay there. Spine chilling, isn't it? This book is a constant reminder of the realities that so many of us women and female identifying individuals experience every day and every waking moment, even our sleeping moments. This book reminds us that although the world appears as one, the fact is there is a duality to the world. The world that men inhabit and the world that men experience is completely different from the world that women inhabit and women experience. We can see in this poem how the man says all the positive facts that he can see in this world. In the twilight, I could still hear the lark. In the flowering woods, a night fairy walked. In the fragrant springtime air. Now let's look at the flip side, what a woman sees in the world. The night was moonless, oppressively dark. In the Sundarbans, the man-eater stalked. Blood-drenched remains lay there. This poem hits us really hard, especially because these are threats that we live with every day. And I'm not just talking about the very specific references to the Sundarbans, to the man-eating tigers, or blood-drenched remains that may or may not be the reality for all of us. But what I'm talking about is what they represent. Where the man sees twilight, he sees romance. He sees a beautiful, romantic, lovely scenery. Where the woman sees moonlight and twilight, or twilight and moonlight in that order, she sees a dark road that she must traverse alone, where there are dangers lurking in the shadows, where she must be careful at every turn, keep all her senses peeled, lest someone or something attack her. And it is oppressive, it feels oppressive because the moonlight is so beautiful and you should enjoy it, you should enjoy the lark singing. But it is so oppressively dark and scary and frightening. It's just, I can't even finish the sentence, but I know that the women and female identifying individuals who are watching this video can empathize with what I'm feeling right now. Then we go on to the next stanza, where the man talks of the flowering woods, where there are night fairies, where even the slightest rustle in the surroundings, the rustle of leaves, the breaking of twigs is something absolutely exciting. It could mean discovering something new, it could mean finding lost treasure, it could mean meeting spirits who defy the imagination, who are wish granting. But for the woman, it is where the man-eater stalks. And not just in the sense of Bengal being the home ground of the Sundarbans, where there are tigers, which are man-eaters, some of them, but also the fact that there are men who prey on women, who become man-eaters, or in this case, woman-eaters, by preying on women, by stalking them, by kidnapping them, by assaulting them, and by doing unspeakable horror and torture on them. And every rustle of the leaf, every break of the twig is a sound of alarm, a sound that to the woman that she must run, she must hide, she must make herself as small as she can so that she isn't found, so that she isn't hurt, so that she isn't taken, so that she isn't killed. And then we go on to the third stanza. In that fragrant springtime air, blood-drenched remains lay there. The man can only smell the most beautiful flowers. He can taste the most beautiful and delicious fruits. He can experience life for all the joy and optimism that it is. But for the woman, there at every turn, there is some threat that's following her. When I read the phrase blood-drenched remains lay there, I get two pictures. One is that of an actual assault, where a woman is brutally injured, killed. In the other sense, there's the blood-drenched remains of how we are tied down by society, how our blood becomes a point of contention, right from our periods being taboo and being a sin, being a curse upon womankind, towards being unable to give birth. And especially if woman experiences miscarriages, she's considered to be of ill fortune or and ill luck, especially in the Indian context. I'm sure it's the same in different cultures around the world as well. It reminds me of domestic violence per- perpetrated by both the husband or the husband's parents or the husband's family or even the woman's own family. It reminds me of honor killings. Blood-drenched remains lay there. It's right out in the open. Our blood paints the ground that we walk upon. We just might not be able to see it. And I think this is why this particular poem, Take Back the Night by Nabneeta Dev Sen, is just so powerful, because all of this isn't a thing of the past. It's true even today. And I'm sure it's going to be true even 10 years, 20 years, 100 years down in the future. And I know that's very pessimistic thinking, but the fact is, with as many positive changes that we'll get, there will be criminals who will try to find loopholes or ways around these positive changes, around these protections for women and female identifying individuals. And so there will constantly be this threat. And also there's this underlying global societal consciousness wherein women are considered to be inferior. Women are considered to be someone that you should put in place, right? Put them in their place. They're not supposed to be out in the open. They're not supposed to be outside of the kitchen. Their job is to have babies. How dare they want agency over their own bodies? How dare they want to take a moonlit stroll? I was having a conversation with my sister, and we were discussing about public amenities available for men and women, and we were talking about how there are such few public restrooms for women compared to men. Even if you're traveling, let's say you're going somewhere, men can just stop their vehicle and just pee anywhere. That's a common problem in India. I don't know how much of a problem it is overseas, but that's a very common problem in India and South Asia generally. Women don't have that luxury. There's always someone about, something happening, there's no enclosure. So even if you're on a road trip and you really have to go, you either hold it in, or you wear a diaper, or you take the risk of being seen and just go out in the open. And we were also talking about, I was talking to my sister about just the way the world is constructed for men and women. And she was talking to me about a book that she read. I think it's a book, it could be an article, I'm not really sure, a research paper. But she mentioned about how there are, if you go out in the evenings, you will see a greater population of men compared to women, because women don't just stay out and hang out, because there are no spaces for women to hang out. And more importantly, women are constantly criticized for wanting to not remain indoors, for wanting to not make themselves smaller, for wanting to not make themselves invisible. And that's the problem. That's a reality that was true hundreds, thousands of years ago, not just in India, but across the world, but also within India and across the world even today. And so Take Back the Night by Nabneeta Dev Sen is a book that strives to make us aware and acknowledge the problem that is inherent in society today. Most of us women and female identifying individuals will be aware of this because we'll experience these things ourselves firsthand. We'll experience what happens when we decide to take the stroll out in the night, when we decide to not make ourselves smaller or invisible, to just be who we are. But the fact remains that a large chunk of the world, the large population, the lion's share as they call it, is male, and many of them are not aware, or they just don't care. You might have had conversations with the men in your family, just like I have, where the men just seem either clueless that this is the reality for women, or they try to give excuses. It could be because they want to uphold the patriarchal values, or it could be because they just don't think that these are real threats that women face. Either way, women and female identifying individuals have been alone in this fight for a very long time. And Take Back the Night is a reminder that the only ones who can help ourselves is us. And if we find allies outside of our communities, that's great. Hold on to them, bring them in, invite them in, use them to get the word out about what you're facing so that change can happen. But we have to take back the night. This problem has been there for centuries, for millennia across the world, not just in India. And it's time we took back the night. Don't you think so? All right. So this was Take Back the Night by Nabneeta Dev Sen. I just loved this poem and I'm gonna go check out Acrobat right now. And if you have read this poem, if you have read Acrobat, do let me know in the comments below what you think, what is your analysis of this poem, what do you feel about Nabneeta's writing, and do you recommend any other poems or works by her so we can all read them. So yeah, and of course, like the video, hit the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode of Tales in Text. And until then, ciao.